Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Monster Families. Today we're going to be looking at one that I've always kind of had trouble with, and that is the Thorned Hulks, which are an animal type, although technically they're a tree. They do have a rather odd death animation, which turns them into like a little shriveled husk, which is kind of neat. It says, composed mostly of wood, Thorned Hulks are ancestral protectors of the jungle lands. Despite their strength and immense bramble and thorn-covered arms, even they have been twisted by the prime evils. Their now glassy, lifeless eyes hint at a deep sorrow beneath a glowing, hell-induced hatred. Thorned Hulks use Frenzy and have a chance to stun on striking, a duration of 0.28 seconds. They also regenerate health twice as fast as normal monsters. Now, I did find some more advanced information on the stun, and it says that depending on the monster, it is between a 30, 40, 50, or 55% chance upon inflicting damage to cause the stun to happen. So the monsters types do have different percent chances to stun, and it's up to a 55% chance to stun for 0.28 seconds, which isn't like super crazy, but it's enough to like lock down a melee character if you're surrounded by them. There's also a rather interesting elite that doesn't exist except for in the files. His name is Spike Fist, and apparently he just doesn't exist in the game, but he does have kind of like a neat red tint to him. Spike Fist is only in the files of the game, and they do have all the information on him, but he just doesn't exist within the actual game itself. There is actually only one super unique Hulk monster, and that's the one that I'm at right now, which is, of course, Stormtree. Stormtree guards the doorway to Lower Karast once you get out of the Flare Jungle. He's always a very welcome sight, in my opinion, because as soon as you see him, you know for 100% fact that you have managed to get out of the jungle, which is always a blessing. When you kill them, like I said earlier, they tend to have this like really weird death animation. Let me see if I can show you. Of course, these are lightning resistant monsters, and I am a lightning damage character. But they kind of like curl up into these little husks. There's one of them right there. So I'm sure if you can see it because they're in the way. But you can see they curl up into these little tiny husks, despite the fact they're these big giant creatures. And even in the old version of the graphics, they also kind of just like curl up into these little balls on the ground. They actually do make fairly effective revives, so if you're looking for good revives, these guys are not bad. They have Frenzy, which stacks, so if you're familiar with the Barbarian Frenzy, the more that you attack, the more that the Frenzy builds up. It's actually indicated by these wavy lines that go around the Thrasher, and as they increase their Frenzy stacks to the maximum, their attack speed goes up, their attack rating goes up, and so forth and so on, and they get much better at whooping your butt. It's actually pretty dangerous sometimes, because if you let them fully spool up to their highest attack speed and their highest, frenzy bonuses, they can dish out some pretty significant damage. Now, of course, I'm prepared specifically for this video, so I have some pretty tanky equipment on, so I can stand here and talk to you about it. But if I wasn't, and like for instance, I took off this god piece of equipment that I'm using to prevent them from murdering me, you see that my HP drops really fast. Almost died there. Only took it off for like a half a second. These guys are interesting. I don't know exactly what makes them so tanky or like hard to kill, but they definitely seem to be harder to kill than what their stats would intend. Their HP is only 8,000 to 13k, which is mid. It's about dead smack in the middle for HP, because the highest is like 22,000 and the lowest is like 800. So it's definitely a decent amount of hit points. They have okay physical mitigation at 25%. It's definitely half of the average, which is usually 50. They have no magic res. They have no fire res. They have no cold res except for in hell. And once you get to hell difficulty, they do have an immunity to cold, usually unbreakable. They have no lightning res, and they have no poison res. And despite the fact that they basically have no resistances except for cold, they still tend to be kind of ridiculously hard to kill. Now, sometimes they do end up with enchantments, which of course can increase their resistances to specific elements. Like, for instance, Stormtree, I believe, is always lightning enchanted, so he generally tends to be either resistant or immune to lightning in some way, shape, or form, which these guys also have the 75% lightning res from his enchantment. And if you outrun them for a little while, their frenzy does wear off, just like it does on players. Like, you'll physically see the wind sort of like leave their wings, so to speak. And once the wind is gone, they no longer have those ridiculous damage bonuses to hit you with. which is actually the best way to fight them when they're not spooled up. That's what I like to call it. Because when they're not spooled up, they attack much slower, and they have to sit there and build their frenzy stacks again, which frenzy doesn't even particularly last very long. I believe it's something like 8 seconds. So if they are fully spooled up and you're having trouble killing them, you could always run away, wait 8 seconds for their frenzy stacks to go down, and then come back and fight them later. As revives, they're particularly powerful because, well, if you have a pack of these guys, maybe in combination with some Erdars or something, the frenzy allows them to hit extremely fast and do a very large amount of damage because, of course, they're getting the frenzy damage bonus, the frenzy AR bonus, and the frenzy speed bonus, which allows them to attack much faster than most other monsters can attack. And of course, it takes a little bit for them to spool up, but once they're spooled up, very nice damage output. There are guest versions of these monsters. Mainly, I think in the trying to remember, it's usually just in Bloody Foothills. I think, right? Usually with Shank, and they're annoying with Shank as well. Yeah. Yeah, I think they're just kind of annoying wherever they go, and maybe it's the stun, maybe it's the high hit point pool, maybe it's a combination of effects, like that they always tend to spawn with other nasty monsters like spear cats or quill rats or other nasty creatures that can back them up relatively effectively. But I find that these guys are just kind of annoying on certain characters and really easy on others. It really depends on what element you're doing, because of course, if you're doing cold, you're going to have a hard time with these guys. Physical doesn't necessarily have a hard time doing damage to them, but they are also relatively strong in their own right offensively, which can sometimes cancel out your melee character, where you go in there to try and hit them and they hit you back as equally hard as you hit them, and you kind of just like scamper away. Um, there are tons of these throughout the game. They tend to be in Act 3 a lot. They're also in Act 5 a lot, and I believe also they tend to be kind of like spread like sugar water all throughout Act 3, including some of the like the city areas. So like when you get into like Upper Kurast and Lower Kurast, as well as Kurast Bazaar, I think they can spawn in all three of them, if I remember correctly. Um, I kind of like their original appearance better than the new one. I don't know about you guys. Like their new appearance is cool and all, but like the old appearance just had like this menacing, looked a lot more menacing, I feel like, than the new one. Especially with the way the eyes glowed. They did a better job, like, making sure the eyes were glowing. I never noticed that they had two different appearances in the old one, too. I guess they have two different appearances in the new one. This one has more of a broad face with horns on it, and this one has more of a pointy face. And same thing here, like, this one has the pointy face, and this one has the broad face. When you resurrect them, too, you actually resurrect them from these little husks. And they turn back into their full form from the husks. It's kind of neat. I think that's pretty much it with the Thorn Hulks. Don't let them frenzy up on you. Use them for revives. They're definitely good for that. They're size 3 monsters, so they do tend to take really good spell damage, like Charge Strike and things like that. Cold damage is obviously one of the worst elements for them, so you're going to have trouble if you're a cold character. And yeah, that's pretty much it. As always, I appreciate you guys and gals joining me. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you are enjoying the Monster Family series. This is my full-time job, so I do appreciate the support. And as always, keep watching.